Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to a brand new week of Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about discovering the ways that make your partner feel loved, the important conversations to have to strengthen your connection and commitment, and the 6 mini moments to keeping your relationship both simple and fueled up. But before we get into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
Oh, I had a good lockdown week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
What was so good about it?
Well, I shouldn't say I had a good week. I should say I had a few good fuel up moments last week.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Yes, because lockdown's not fun as a whole. But I did have an annual review for my job last week.
Oh, amazing. How'd that go?
Yeah, it reminded me how important it is to give and receive feedback.
It is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, and how validating it can be for someone to be like, hey, you're doing a good job. And here's some things that you're specifically doing that are awesome. And here's some things that maybe you could work on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from the feedback, that's where we grow. So, yeah, I had a really good review and I got a cheeky pay rise, which is always nice.
Shows that you're valued.
Yeah. Those conversations create such an opportunity to reflect on what you've achieved. Yeah, so I went back through my last year and had a look at all the things that I'd created and systems I'd improved and processes that I'd passed on to other people and all that kind of stuff and the things that didn't exist before I came along.
Yeah, all of the value that you've added over the last 12 months.
Yeah. And it helped me get really excited about the next 12 months too. So there was a nice career win, nice little career fuel up.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, what about you, Nath? What fueled you up this past week?
I had a couple of things which happened basically over the weekend. So the first one was on Saturday when we were going to buy Splendor XR tickets to go to a virtual festival. And I don't know, for whatever reason, we just didn't end up getting around to it or didn't end up doing it. But we just kind of made our own little festival at home with some back in the day emo style vibes. But it was really good fun. We just cranked the beats all day and kind of did a few errands and stuff around home and a few chores and stuff like that, but made some improvements to our place and had a little dance party while we were at it.
Yeah, we attended Soundwave circa early 2000s.
2013.
Yeah. Oh, do you reckon it was that late? I reckon it was earlier in the decade. But yeah, we had lots of Blink 182, Good Charlotte, Sum 41, Offspring.
Yeah.
What else did we have going on?
My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, it was great.
It was really good. It was really good fun.
We had some Simple Plan cranked.
Yeah.
You pulled out the guitar.
I did. Yeah. And that was the thing too. It did kind of refuel my guitar playing passion. And so I even busted out my electric guitar. I've normally got the acoustic sitting out there ready to kind of play, but and busted out the electric and had a bit of a jam.
And probably annoyed our neighbours.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. We had a good day.
Yeah, we did. And then my other fuel up for the week was watching some of the Olympics and seeing these amazing athletes achieve some of their massive goals that they've set out to achieve. It's really quite emotional, actually, seeing these people kind of...
Nate's looking at me as he says emotional because I have cried a lot since the Olympics started. I do. I get really emotional looking at someone who's achieved a lifelong goal. They've been in pursuit of this sometimes since they were small children. And it's really beautiful. And I think it's extra emotional at the moment because obviously they're competing in Tokyo and hardly any of the athletes are traveling with family. So then you see them win and then the telecast is cutting to their friends and family who are supporting them from afar. And their cheer squad who have just thrown everything behind this person to achieve this goal and it's happened. It gets me right in the feels, especially if they're Aussie.
yeah, that's it. And I think for me, it's just reinstated the importance of setting big goals and really it does help you grow and help you achieve big things. Because if you don't have those goals, and you're going for a swim, are you really going to swim all that fast? If you don't have a goal to achieve? And I think it definitely does ignite the fuel in your own belly if you do have goals to be able to achieve.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there. It's about who you become in pursuit of that goal. And I think we get so comfortable and plateaued in so many areas of our lives because we stop setting goals.
Yeah.
But the things that we can do are pretty amazing when we set time, money, energy, resources behind achieving something.
Oh, absolutely. And it feels pretty good to achieve those goals in the end too.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I think I just need to reconnect with my 2021 goals and reignite some of that passion and really kind of push to actually achieving them.
Yeah, we are halfway through the year now, so
I know.
It's time to do a check-in with our 21 goals for 2021.
Good time to reflect. But now let's introduce this week's guests.
Today we've got Megan and Nahum Kozak joining us. Megan is an accredited relationships educator, couples counselor, and co-founder of Lighthouse Relationships. She is trained in prepare and enrich pre-marriage counselling and Gottman method couples therapy. Megan works with couples across Australia, is a regular guest speaker across Australia and New Zealand, and has articles published internationally. Nahum has been a psychologist since 2010 and specialises in couples therapy. He has had several appearances on 7 News, is a regular relationship expert on ABC Radio Brisbane, and is co-founder of Lighthouse Relationships. Megan and her husband Nahum have co-founded an organisation called Lighthouse Relationships, which offers relationship education workshops, couples counselling, and online courses. They've been together for 16 years, are a strong husband and wife team who fell in love and have stayed that way by practicing the strategies that they teach. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you for the lovely intro.
Yeah.
Hey, 16 years.
I know. High five. Like,
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't make it there.
No, they don't.
Yeah, that's which we get to see, unfortunately, sometimes in our work.
Yeah. We're lucky. We picked good ones and then we worked hard. So I think it's kind of a couple of different things that have got us here.
Yeah. So going right back to the beginning, when and where did you first meet?
Oh, I hired Nahum for a job. So I don't know. Hire a hubby sounds bad, doesn't it? I was very young. I was 16 at the time, and I was going to this particular church, and they were looking for a youth coordinator to kind of, do great things with the youth. And I remember being put onto this interview team as like the token youth person. And so I went along, and I was like, all right, let's have a look. And we had a few different candidates too. And I remember noticing Nahum and being like, something about that guy. I reckon he's the right one for this job. And I went and told the person in charge. And anyway, Nahum was there. And we would kind of just knew each other for a while, friends for a while. And about 4 years later, we decided to start dating. And there you go. The rest is history.
So did you build a really solid friendship in that 4 years and then it turned romantic? Or did you not see each other? Or tell us a bit about that.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So I was, really fortunate to get the job and help build this little community of young adults and young people and do some really good stuff. And Megan was just like one of the most consistent volunteers and always there and always happy to contribute and such a beautiful presence. And kind of we weren't friends for...
Not really.
No,
we were kind of volunteer co-workers, I suppose, for want of a better word, for a while. I thought he was great. I thought I really respected him and valued him and everything, but I actually quietly thought he would never look at me. I sort of just thought, oh, he's out of my league, or, just he's a bit too cool or a bit too sophisticated for me. I won't even bother kind of thinking about that. And then about 4 years in, kind of this veil was lifted and we were like, oh my gosh, you were there the whole time.
So it was a funny kind of situation where working there for 3 or 4 years. And it was only for the last 6 months of that time before we started going out where I was like, oh, hang on, I really like her. And I had the same sort of thought of she's way out of my league though. And I talked myself out of it. I'm like, don't even approach her. Don't even talk to her about it. Don't ask her out or anything like that. She'll just say no or put her in an embarrassing position. But then ironically, because I'd given up, it was okay for me to then say, hey, do you want to come and see a show with me? I knew she liked theatre and I liked theatre. And I'm like, well, now I can just ask her as a friend, now that all the pressure's off, that it could be a relationship. And she said yes. And then afterwards, we're walking in the park. There's a park near the theatre. And I realised if I don't ask her now, like when there's a golden opportunity, she'll assume that I'm completely not interested. So I'm like, oh my God, I have to do it. And I think I was extremely coherent. I think I said something like, hey, would you kind of be interested in maybe one day looking at being a little bit more friends than we are now? Maybe but you don't have to. You don't have.
And it was
so
that
much
level of
certainty,
articulation.
clearly.
But I thought, he's the guy.
How could I not?
Anyway.
Okay, so you started dating in your like early 20s. What has your relationship been like since then?
Well, Nahum knew I was the one, I guess, about 6 months in. And 4 years later, I was right there with him.
Yeah.
So it took me a little bit longer than him. And I was a bit younger. So, I wanted to kind of make sure I was ready in all the different ways. And so, we dated for 4.5 years before we got married. And then, married sort of mid-20s for me, early 30s for you. And then we just slowly started to build a life together and create a rhythm together, which takes time, as you guys would know, to kind of go, right, how do we turn these two separate lives into one where we both feel like we are becoming our very best selves? And it took a lot of kind of learning about how to do that. Then a few years in, we had a couple of beautiful girls. So we've got 2 daughters who are now 6 and 8, who very much keep us on our toes. Yeah. And now we're really happily married and we have this beautiful life and beautiful rhythm and just actually feel like it just gets better and better, to be honest. Yeah.
So as 2 people who are in a relationship with each other, but also working in this field of supporting other couples, you must have so many tools in your toolbox.
We are really, really fortunate. When I finished my psychology degree, I was looking for and finished working where Megan, or actually no, at the same time as working at where Megan was, I started doing an internship to get my full registration as a psychologist. And I was lucky enough to do it at a place that ran pre-marriage preparation. And so I was running these pre-marriage courses for other people. And I was just thinking, what a fantastic experience this is. I decided to, before we decided to get married and let alone pop the question, I printed like a ticket to a pre-marriage course on gold paper and slipped it inside a chocolate bar. And so
cute, right?
How very Willy Wonka of you.
Yeah.
That's right. And I gave that to her and she was very sweet. I was like, oh, wonderful. And like I knew that she liked doing personality quizzes and all sorts of other things where you get to discover. And so doing something where we get to talk together about stuff like, the family that you grew up in and how that, whether you want to take parts of that into the, family that you're forming, if you're going to form a family. Yeah, and if you're going to argue, how do you argue in a way that's fair and that's actually helpful? What do you want to do with money? How do you want to spend time with friends and family when you're together? Because it might be different to how you do it as a single person. It's kind of fun, like a fun process.
Yeah, absolutely.
For us to do that.
And lovely to do that before getting engaged. I think that's something that a lot of couples tend to do after they're engaged. We're like, oh, well, let's go do some counselling together. But the ring's on the finger and the guests are already told and there's a date booked and there's a whole lot of pressure of outside things surrounding it already. That it kind of means you're focusing on the wedding day as opposed to the marriage. And it was such a gift to get to look at our relationship just as a whole without looking at all the pressures of the dress or the flowers or the bouquet.
Yes.
So, Megan, maybe tell us a little bit about what are some of the practices that you've got in your relationship now to help you keep it fueled up and in that state of dating forever?
Oh, great question. There's a few that are our go-tos, and they're really easy and simple ones. And one of the best ones for me personally is to learn to notice your emotions and to ask for what you need. And it sounds absurdly simple. It sounds like, I don't know, brush your teeth or something, but it's so valuable. I think if you grow up in a family where some emotions aren't necessarily okay to share or where you have to put on some kind of a mask in order to fit in, being suddenly in very close quarters or in a committed, intimate relationship with someone where all of those emotions are going to come out, you've got to learn how to accept that they're going to be okay and for your partner. And that was a really big learning for me. So I had to learn to notice those emotions, accept that they were okay, and recognize that an emotion points toward a need. It's like a compass. It shows you the direction of something that's not being filled yet. And so once I knew what I needed, I had to discover and learn that it was okay to ask for it. So if I needed quiet time or time without my beloved, that was okay. I could ask for that. Or if I needed chocolate, I could ask for that. That was fine, whatever it was. Yeah, so the emotion pointed towards a need and I could ask for what I needed, which was just a game changer for me. And outside of that, there's lots of simple and easy little things that we do. One of the best things we do, especially now that we have kids, is have a date night weekly. Fills up my sense of quality time, my tank of love for the week to come.
And then what about you? What would you say is one of the daily or weekly practices that you've got to keep your relationship filled up?
I love the question. And I'm going to go with this the same answer of a date night. And we're really fortunate. Megan's parents are still with us, and they take the girls every Friday night, and they've done this for years. And so we're just really fortunate to have, so in my work, I recommend, to couples who come, I'm like, look, try for 2 hours to have a date. It doesn't matter if it's at night or during the day, or, as long as you just get a chance to really connect well. We're really fortunate to have like that whole evening. And I think that's been a real godsend. Like, I look at my own parents and think they didn't have a chance. Like, we were just hanging off them all the time. They did end up drifting like apart from one another emotionally. And I feel so fortunate that that's not something that's happened with us. So
yeah. And I think even like we're talking about this experience with kids, but I think if you're early in your relationship as well, it's so valuable because I think you can do life next to one another, but you can be on your phones, or you can be organizing dinner, or you can be packing your work bag, or whatever it is. But when you consciously set aside time, not to be next to one another, but to be with one another and to be present and to look at them and ask them these questions and learn and build your map of one another. It makes the world of difference.
Yeah. And I think that probably differentiates being housemates and being actually in a romantic relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what does date night look like? What do you normally do?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's pretty
We can go behind the bedroom if you want to. You can tell us that story.
Suddenly got really personal. Sometimes it's really low key. Sometimes it's like takeout and Better Homes and Gardens and like happy days we made it to Friday. Whew. But then other times we'll go out to dinner. We have a pizza place that now know our face and our order accordingly, which is quite embarrassing. We'll go to a show. Like, we both love theatre, and so now that places are opening up again, that's awesome. So find things that we both love where we get to connect and share an experience, or get to have a really good conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the conversation that's usually the best part of it. Like, we don't assume that we know everything about each other. Like, we're still finding out things now, years into the relationship. And that's really fun, like, to keep on growing and getting to know different things about you and where you're at. So we'll go, like, sometimes we'll go to a terrible movie, like, and since COVID, they seem to have gotten worse. But the great thing is then afterwards we'll be picking it apart with each other, and that process of doing something together and finding out, that made you laugh, and what happened there, and actually often it's like, Nahum, why were you the only person laughing in the whole cinema? And kind of get to know. I liked how you said one, like a love map, like your map of one another. That's I don't know if you know Gottman
That's
method.
a Gottman idea, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yeah. So that beautiful thing of like, inside our phones, we have a map of the outside world and it helps us get places. But I had actually, like, the highway was diverted, like they were doing some works. But my phone still wanted to take me straight through this, concrete barrier, like, because of course it hadn't updated. And it could be like that in a relationship as well. Like, we needed to keep on updating our maps of one another's, likes, dislikes, preferences, feelings, like what you're feeling at the moment. I feel like that's a real shortcut into your partner's world. It's interesting, like, some of my clients are engineers, Nathan, so and I start talking about feelings and they're like, well, hang on, this is all, what's this fluffy stuff? Like, this is, I wanted to come here for practical strategies. And it takes me a little while sometimes to go, hey, like, this is actually the most direct, concrete method of getting to know what's happening inside your partner. You really want to pay attention to it. I'm sure you're a complete exception.
No, he loves the process.
Want to map everything out.
Yeah. If you knew their steps, you would just follow them. It's great.
That's it.
Hey, so I would love to know, what is it like working together? How do you make that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question because we have really different styles of working, which has been interesting to kind of navigate through, especially when, you're a professional in relationships. So kind of the pressure's really on to make this whole thing
lead
work,
by example.
right? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So I'm more, I guess, more details focused and have probably got a higher level of anxiety than he does in terms of how I want everything to go really well.
I thought you were going to explain that you have a higher standard, which would also be true.
Do you know what? I phrased it in a different way. I was being welcome. Whereas Nahum's more easygoing and kind of just trust that everything will work out. So what's great about that is that we balance each other out really nicely professionally, which is good because I can worry about something 3 weeks in advance and he's like, well, perhaps we could just do today. What do you think? Which is really nice. It's a nice balance, but we're learning each other in a different way when we're working together. Yeah.
I think we didn't just arrive at that, though. I think we need to have a few different, before, Megan's slightly more introverted than myself as well. It was good that she was able to say, hey, I need time without you as well. Because I would just happily...
I need you to not be here right now, please.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like, hey, what do you want to do together now? And what about now? And what about now? And just someone, a really good friend of mine ages ago already had described this to me. They said, Nahum, you're like a really enthusiastic puppy dog. It's hard to be angry at you because you can see how well-meaning you are.
But you're still annoying.
That's it, at the same time. It's like the puppy dog's trampling all over all the flowers you've just carefully planted out. And I'm like, okay, this is a really good analogy. And
yeah.
But we got to fairly early, within the first couple of years in our relationship, to a point where I would just ask. I would just say, is the best gift I can give you right now my absence? And and if
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was, and he'd say it. Yeah, let me give you the gift of my absence. And I'd be like, thank you, I accept it.
Yeah.
And when can that start?
Whenever she wants.
Yeah.
And then it's cool because then I don't feel rejected because I offered to go and and I can skip happily away going, hey, I'm doing the best thing that's most loving for her right now. And then, just a short time later, half an hour later, we can have a really good conversation then where I'm not crushing her with my Pepe Le Pew style love.
With your presence.
That's right.
So going back to something that you touched on earlier, you said that you had quite a few conversations pre-marriage because you were going through this course at that time. So what would be the top 3 conversations that you would recommend people have before marriage?
Great question. One of my top ones is actually about your family of origin, which is about the family you grew up in, because so much of what we bring into a relationship, we come from what was modeled for us. And so we walk in there thinking that our normal is our partner's normal. And then we're so surprised when our normals don't match. And so there's this beautiful opportunity to unpack and go, well, this was my family and this was the dynamic and these were the things that they celebrated and did beautifully that I really want to hold on to. But these are the aspects that I think I can do better or do differently. Not even better, but just differently as we create our own. And that's so powerful and wonderful because then it's a conscious choice because you learn one another. You understand the reason why someone is acting or reacting in the way that they are. And you can consciously choose to create a beautiful family or traditional life that you want. That's my top one. What about you?
Yeah. I reckon that's a really, really good one.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that. And I like creating the container where it then kind of normalizes those conversations of even in your family when you were growing up, what was a normal dinner time routine, or who did the cooking, who did the cleaning, who was responsible for bedtime, all of those things. I think that really does help you understand how your partner how they expect or how they maybe are anticipating their life to look, or if they even want it to be the same or different, or did they like that? Did they not like that?
But I think it allows you to have that conscious conversation. If there is a difference, it might bring that to the surface, and you might not have realized that you were doing things completely differently and that you had those different views. So I think it allows you to get to that point where you go, oh, well, the thing your family did was different to what my family did. Now we can make a choice of how do we want to do it as a family.
Definitely. And the number of couples that we both work with who are preparing for marriage or commitment in some kind of a way, who haven't had that conversation or have had snippets of it or have noticed little things but have never laid it all out on the table. And when they do, suddenly it's like all these light bulbs go off and they're like, oh God, that's why you flipped out at Christmas, or that's why you have this experience around dinner time routines. It just allows people to understand one another and then make a beautiful choice together.
Yeah.
Because even things like, how do you prepare to buy things, and what was the normal thing in your family to, if a big purchase was coming up, did you know that you were going to take a holiday every year and it was on clockwork and it was planned and budgeted for, or was it, Flight Centre are having a sale, jump on it? Like, I think those kinds of things are really interesting to talk about too.
Absolutely.
Well, we found the opposite was worse for us. Like, we couldn't shop together because it's like, what kind of rice do you want? I don't know. What do you normally get? Well, I don't know. I normally get this one. I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want?
That sounds like my nightmare.
Oh my God.
We really quickly...
Indecision is my nightmare.
It was unreal. It was about 6 minutes standing in front of the rice, and we got to the point where like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
We can't do this together.
Imagine how long it would take to do the whole grocery store. Like, rice, and then peanut butter, and then what apples do you like? Oh my God.
We learned quickly.
Taking turns doing the shopping. The shopping was our big nemesis. Yeah, that was our thing that we couldn't do.
Look, in terms of another conversation, though, to have before you get married or before you have a commitment or whenever you are really, one of the beautiful activities that we do ourselves but also with clients is really simple, and it's called I Feel Loved When. And so it's like you finish that sentence. So I feel loved when, and then list 3 or 5 things that make you feel really, really loved. And this is an incredible tool because it just opens up this whole world of golden tickets for you and your partner to know exactly how to make you feel loved in that moment. So really early in our marriage, where each morning, Nahum must have read something about making cups of tea, like some story.
I heard this lovely story from the woman who trained me in running pre-marriage courses. So Jennifer Mason. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
So Jennifer, like her husband, she tells this story about her husband every morning, makes her a cup of coffee. She loves coffee. She feels loved when she steps out of the shower, and there it is, a steaming cup of coffee. He's been thinking of her, and I thought, aha, Megan likes tea. I'll do. That's right. So every morning I was like, making her a cup of tea and putting it there for her.
Absolutely.
And every morning she was secretly saying thank you and then secretly tipping it out when I wasn't looking.
So my morning routine, like the tea was very lovely. I accepted all the love. But oh man, I was like blow drying my hair and getting my makeup on and trying to get myself sorted. And he's giving me this cup of tea that I now feel obligated to drink whilst it's scorching my throat. Yeah, that's right.
Not loving her.
Man. And each time it would arrive, I'd just quietly die inside and go, great, it's another cup of tea. So we had to have this kind of slightly awkward conversation about, look, can I accept the love, not the tea? Would that be okay? Is there another way to do this? And so we just kind of talked about it. I was like, well, what does make you feel?
Megan, I need to know, how long did you let this go on for?
Oh my gosh. Embarrassingly long. I mean, like not years, but definitely months. Like it would have been a solid 6 months of marriage before I was like, do you know what? This tea thing's got to stop. It's got to go.
Yeah. It would have gone on forever.
It would have. He would have kept doing
forever. I would have shown you love, and you would have eventually resented it and like started hating on me.
I would have just hated tea. Yeah. So, but I was able to then, in this conversation, able to say different things that did make me feel really loved. That weren't hard. It wasn't like buy me diamonds. It was things like, actually, what makes me feel really loved is when you whisper in my ear, because it just feels so intimate and just you and me. And it doesn't matter what you say, but in that moment, I feel really loved. And so now, all the time, I reckon almost every day, Nahum would find some reason to whisper in my ear. And it's things like, honey, I'm taking out the garbage. You know, it doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, I love this little romantic ritual.
It's delightful because it gives me goosebumps and it makes me feel really special. And it also makes me feel like, oh, he knows me. I'm known, I'm loved, and he's consciously doing something to let me know he's for me and with me. And I love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the question, I guess, the conversation to have before, what makes you feel loved?
I feel loved when. Yeah, that's a really simple one. Totally free. Just sit with each other.
It's completely free. Like we did it with some really high-tech equipment. I think we were at a cafe when we would just say, hey, like let's each write down how we both feel most loved. And so we had like a pen and a napkin, and that was our high-tech equipment for writing those things down. Yeah. And I was like winning because whispering something in someone's ear takes 5 seconds. Yeah. Not like minutes boiling a kettle.
Way easier than the kettle.
And it was like straight in. Like I know that fills up her cup. I know that that's something that's,
Isn't that beautiful though? Because you've then got a very like tactile list that you're like, oh my gosh, look at this. I've got all the cheat codes.
That's exactly right. It's a cheat sheet. Yeah.
Absolutely. Who knew this bizarre thing where you tell each other stuff and then you each know it. It's really so weird. But it doesn't come naturally at all.
Yeah. And I think that does, like asking for what you want is a skill. That's a muscle that can be really uncomfortable to use sometimes.
Definitely. Absolutely. Especially when we're given this picture, this almost Hollywood picture that really your partner, if they love you, they should just know. They should just know what makes you feel wonderful, And it turns out our partners are rarely mind readers. So we actually do have to let them know.
Yeah. So have your lists updated over time? Like, have they changed? And do you have ongoing conversations to update those lists?
Definitely. I reckon maybe every 6 months or so we'd have a chat. And it's not like we schedule it, but we'll just come up with like, well, tell me where you're at. What's going on? Yeah, because we don't want to revisit tea.
No.
Let that one stay in the past.
Yeah.
Hey, so we've heard you talk a little bit about building and layering these kind of daily practices to show your person that you really love them. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. We think it's important how you part at the start of the day. What's something that's happening in your day that you're worried about? Or what's happening in your day? Like, just take a minute, because clearly people are putting on makeup and blow drying their hair. But just take, so not a long time, but just each having a minute to kind of say, like, what's coming up? And then at the end of the day, you get to ask about that. You go, oh, how did such and such go? Also, like a hot tip for people who might be extroverts who talk a lot, if you're the person who talks most in your couple relationship, as I do, I learned to ask Megan first so that she has a chance to do the talking first, because otherwise she would ask me and I would go to great detail about my day. You'd be sitting there probably going, okay, and I had a day too. I'd love to tell you about it when you stop talking.
Whenever you're ready.
But yeah.
I like that. That's a really simple tip, though. Let the introvert go first.
Yeah. And then give them space. Ask the question and then give them 10 seconds before you jump in and try to answer for them. Just give them a little space.
Yeah, I count to 30 in my head.
I do this, Nahum. Oh, my gosh, I do this. Listen, Nathan, do you? I'm like, yes. It's got a more prominent as we've done the podcast together and the show, and I've had to listen back to myself talk over the top of Nath, and that's been really uncomfortable to hear myself doing that to him. So I've started doing this outside of our podcasting environment, but in our relationship, and giving breathing space to the question. But yes, and if it gets to 30 seconds, then I try and reframe the question. And I have got to 30 seconds before.
I'm sure you have.
But yeah, so at the time that I noticed the habit, I was reading this book about the way that men's brains work. I can't remember the book off the top of my head, but yeah, it was saying that often we don't give space for, women are always multitasking, we're moving a million miles an hour, and that men tend to focus on one thing at a time, which is not how my brain works. Yeah, and that realization that, maybe I just need to give him, maybe he does have the answer, just a bit more time. So, you've learned something about me today.
Fabulous. Well, you're updating your love map of one another. You get something else you're getting to know. That's wonderful.
That's fabulous.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think, Sammy, I might be you and Megan might be Nathan. It's funny because we did, have you guys done Myers-Briggs, like personality type stuff at all? Like it's pretty fun.
We've done the 16 personalities. Yeah, that's so I'm a campaigner.
Same.
And Nate's a defender.
There you go.
Nice.
Well, we were looking up what Lord of the Rings characters our Myers-Briggs type were, and I ended up being Arwen, and Megan ended up being Aragorn. Like that's her personality.
The resemblance is uncanny.
Yeah. He has long hair anyway. Yeah. But anyway, never mind.
No, I think that's a tip in itself, is if you don't know those things, go and learn about yourself and your partner. And this idea of date forever is not just about dating your partner, but it is about actively dating yourself and getting to know yourself more and more intimately as time goes on.
Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's really true. I think I'll often use with people the idea of a best friends locket, how it has one half has frère and the other part, it's est ens. That kind of doesn't work so much for relationship. Like when I started dating, when I very early on, I was looking for the other half, like the other person to complete me, help me feel whole, all that kind of stuff. But it turns out that just after a little while, in that kind of situation, you just have twice as much brokenness because you've got two broken halves. Whereas a symbol for a committed relationship is two complete circles overlapping. And so just when you were saying about dating yourself and learning to know yourself and stuff, yeah, like trying to become as complete as you can in the process. And like Megan helps me become more myself, and I help her become more herself, like as time goes on. But but I know I love what you said about, you date yourself as well.
So before we wrap up, I'd just like to know one thing from each of you. What's your ultimate top tip for keeping a relationship fueled up?
Well, what I'm going to do is, can I detour around this question briefly? And can I tell you 6 really quick things? It's called the Magic 6 that you can do, right? So this comes from Gottman Research, and we're both Gottman trained therapists. So there are 6 things that help build a really healthy relationship. So 2 of them they mentioned already. So parting in the morning, checking out what's happening in your day, reuniting at the end of the day and checking in. How'd that meeting go? What was it like? It allows you just to feel like you're on top of each other's daily lives. After that, there's appreciation and admiration, which is saying thank you and noticing and gratitude and just filling up the other person's cup. And you can do that just internally noticing, but also by actually sharing it with that person, which is really valuable. There's also then physical affection. And it's not just sex. I mean, sex is great. But beyond that, it's also just that connection time. So it's being present with someone for 5 minutes at the end of the day and just laying next to them or having your hand on them or watching Netflix together and being connected. It's just that physical intimacy. There's date night, which we've mentioned before, which is a real game changer for us in terms of filling up our emotional bank accounts. And then there's also something called a State of the Union meeting, which is once a week or so, you set aside about half an hour and you have a look at your relationship from that week and you kind of go, okay, well, what worked really well? What are 3 things that were awesome from that week that we loved? And then what's one thing that perhaps we could shake up and do slightly differently? So those are the 6 top tips, or the magic 6, to create a really fantastic relationship. Out of those 6, the one for me, outside of date night, which is beautiful, that I think is really brilliant is appreciation and admiration. So noticing the great things, because it's really easy to notice the things that don't get done. We see it and we have that lens on all the time, but to allow yourself to notice the wonderful things and then to tell your partner about that and to express gratitude for it, it makes you happier and it makes your partner happier and it just brings you to a much healthier space together, in my opinion and experience. Yeah.
And I think it also just helps validate that what you're doing for yourself and your partner in your relationship is being seen and heard and appreciated. Yeah, so I think it works for both people.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to use one of your magic 6 as my top one. Well, kind of that idea, the State of the Union meeting. Like, it's funny because it's not a chore. Like, I want to know what's working well. Like, are we okay today? Like, how's stuff going? And then areas that we have a disconnect over or where we disagree or conflict, like that is such a beautiful opportunity to grow closer to one another, like to really explore one another's emotions. And so my top tip is learn how to explore one another on a topic you disagree about. Like learn that, because that's going to keep on giving that gift.
Yeah, I love the idea of these meetings, and we do something very similar on a Sunday normally.
Yeah, we call it happy hour. We normally do like what went well during the week, what did we struggle with, or what were the challenges that what did we stumble over? Is there anything that you'd like me to apologize for? Was really uncomfortable at the beginning, but now it's great.
Yeah.
What is there anything that you feel underappreciated for? Is there any area that I can appreciate you more?
Thank you for.
Yeah, and then we just do the more like logistical. Where's the money at? Where's the food at? How are we going to feed ourselves this week? How's the sex? Is there something we're more of, less of? How are you feeling about your body? That sort of stuff. What can I do to support you best in this upcoming week? What's your week looking like?
Oh,
wow, you guys
so
rock.
Yeah.
Like, you probably know that already.
And we notice when we haven't. We notice when we haven't done it. If we haven't, especially if it's 2 weeks missed, it's like, oh, I feel like we're not in this together. Something's drifting apart. Yeah, or drifting, moving through the same life with different roadmap.
Yeah. How wonderful to normalize that. to kind of go, it's okay to have a meta language about our relationship, to put it on the table and to unpack it in a way that makes sense to us so that we can see it all really clearly and that we can be honest and kind. We can be honest without being brutal, because it's all within a framework and that makes sense. I think that's awesome. Yeah.
If people have loved listening to the two of you and maybe want to connect, how can they do that? What gifts have you got for them?
Well, we were just talking about communication. And if people would like a really simple tip sheet for how to communicate with one another, there's one available on our website, which is lighthouserelationships.com.au. And if you just scroll to the bottom, you can download it there.
Yeah, it's on that homepage. You'll see it on that.
We've also got some quizzes that we put together so people can measure how their couple communication is going or what their conflict style is. So there's a couple of quizzes that we put together as well. And we tried to make them we looked at some different websites when we were setting ours up, and we're like, oh, a lot of them are dreary. They have pictures of couples fighting and with folded arms. We're like, that's not us.
No.
And so the quizzes that we put together, the work that we put together, and the work that we do with couples is fun. I have had complaints from people that we used to share a wall with. We're in a different space now because I was making my couples laugh too much.
Oh.
Which is bad feedback because clearly I was interrupting other people, but it's good feedback.
Yeah. And I guess too, we've been talking today about the simple things. These things are not hard. They're not expensive. They don't take a lot of time. They're simple and easy things. But when you layer them on top of each other, you're building a beautiful relationship daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, And so we have this really simple little course as well, this little drip course, I think you called it before, Sammy, of emails that comes out. And we've called it 21 Days to a More Joyful Relationship. And it really is that. It's each day over 21 days, you get a little tip, a reminder, an action that you do. It takes less than a minute to read and usually about 5 minutes to action that you're able to do with your partner. And it's cheap as chips. You can do it for $10. So you can log on. If you go to lighthouserelationships.com.au and then go to shop, you'll be able to see it there. And I think we've got a promo code as well for your listeners.
That's right. So I think it's normally $15 or something, but if they put in Forever from the Date Forever podcast, when they get to the checkout, then it drops down to $10.
Yeah.
And it really is it takes advantage of the fact that if you do a really tiny thing daily, it can add up to a whole lot more than a concentrated hour once a week or once a fortnight. So what's that? Microdosing?
Yeah.
Something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. As you probably know, we've got really passionate about encouraging couples to date forever and be really conscious about the life that they're living and, to really choose to love life, but also to be the change. So that's about taking accountability for yourself and what you can have influence over, but also about being the change that you want to see in the world. So to say thank you for joining us today, we've provided a month's worth of childhood education to a classroom in Kenya via an organisation called So They Can. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good on you guys.
It's been a pleasure to chat with you both.
Yeah, can I say you guys are really awesome?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
You guys are really awesome.
We take words of affirmation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
So Megan and Nahum, if people want to connect with you personally, how should they do that?
Sure. Well, they can visit our website that we mentioned before. You're welcome to connect with us there. Or you can email us directly if you like at admin@lighthouserelationships.com.au. So we do pre-marriage courses, we do couples counselling. We do a whole host of things in Brisbane, in New Farm, Brisbane, but we also work with couples across Australia via Zoom. So we're very accessible.
Yep.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us.
So long.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.